Hello and welcome to Right Here, Right Queer podcast, a podcast where we talk about queer book stuff. Today we are here to talk about the Astrophobia anthology. I am one of your many hosts, Carolina Cruz, and today I have with me Vesper Doom.
Hello.
Before we get into it, as always, my pronouns are they, them.
I'm she, they.
Perfect. To give you a brief introduction, Astrophobia is an anthology that is curated by Doom, and I am one of the contributors. There are 13 of us in total, which is a very good number for a horror anthology, I think.
That comes out on the 13th.
And it comes out on the 13th. We're so good at this.
We are.
We're so good at branding. Astrophobia is specifically a space horror anthology, focusing on sci-fi and the kind of creepy stuff you can find out in the void, TM. And Vesper Doom here was cool enough to put it all together. What made you want to organize an anthology? It's kind of a big undertaking.
So there were a couple reasons why. The first one was that I didn't have any books planned for this half of the year, and I kind of wanted something to come out just to keep relevant. And I've never actually been in an anthology before I started working on this. So I thought, why not just do my own one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like something that is like in the back of a lot of indie authors' minds when we don't have something that we are currently working on or something that's being released. I had that realization. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of like a novelette I put out last year, Into the Deep and the Dark, which was really fun.
I loved that.
I miss it. But I had the realization that it's the only spring release that I can celebrate. All of my other releases are in the late fall. I was like, I gotta fix that. I don't have anything to celebrate in the spring. I just wait until the fall. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, I knew I had some stuff for later in the year, but I needed something to work on now that I don't have like a proper job, and this sounded like fun.
Yeah, it definitely is a good way to keep busy because there's a lot of moving parts, which leads me to my next question, which is what's been your favorite part of putting together an anthology?
Well, 9, or I guess 8 of the people in the anthology, the contributors, are close personal friends of mine. So it was fun working with them and you, since you're one of them.
Aw, thanks.
So it was fun to work with my friends. And this is also going to be the first publication for 3 people in the anthology.
Oh man, I didn't realize that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so, one of the things I wanted to do was give some of my friends a chance to have a publishing credit.
Heck yeah, no, absolutely. When we first started out working on this, it was really exciting to see everyone talking about their ideas. And I know there are people in this project who I have known for a while or who I've at least like been aware of on social media. And it was really cool to be in a more contained environment and just kind of bounce ideas back and forth and get to read their work and talk with them about it. So it's a really unique opportunity. So that was definitely fun on a contributor angle as well. But I was like, yay. when you put up the idea, I was like, well, first of all, that sounds sick and fun. And second of all, it's someone who, this is my first anthology that will be published that I'm part of. And I was like, I have no idea what this is going to be like. But Doom is doing it. They're cool.
Aww.
So, and the concept is awesome. So I was very pumped that I got to be a part of this as well.
I'm glad that you were part of it too.
Yeah. And on the flip side of it, I know, again, like I said, a lot of moving parts, a lot of kind of different things that need to work well for this many people to put out a cohesive product. Was there anything that you found like challenging about this process, or has it mostly been smooth sailing?
It's mostly been smooth sailing, but it was definitely a bit challenging to get people to meet deadlines. Just because things happen and people are busy, they have life stuff going on. So sometimes it felt like herding cats.
13 cats. Who doesn't want it?
Including myself, yeah.
Including yourself. Honestly, yeah, aren't we all just hurting ourselves? Hurting, not hurting. Hurting ourselves every day. I feel that way.
I mean, I barely got my story finished before the deadline.
I'm currently in another anthology, and the person who invited me to it We're all like, hey, someone's like, how's everyone's stories coming? And the person who invited me is like, I haven't started mine. And I was like, that makes me feel a little better
Yeah.
about myself.
Yeah, I had so many ideas and I tried one out and didn't like it. And then I sat on it for a while and then I was playing a video game and I was like, you know what? I want something that captures this vibe. And then I wrote it in like a week and it was great.
That was me with mine as well. Was like, I wrote mine. I was like, this is good, but I don't know if it's like, it's over the word limit, because it was under the word limit with the first draft. And then I was like, oh, I'll find something else for this anthology, because I don't know if this subject matter is gonna hit. And I was like, I'll write something else that's under the limit for the anthology, something that actually fits. And then I'll allow myself to edit this one to be longer than the word limit. So I did, and then I couldn't come up with anything else. So I'm really glad that you let me.
Yeah, I definitely was super happy to, fudge the word limit to have your story in the anthology because I love it.
I am really happy that you let me, because I was worried for a second there. I'm sure I could have written the other concept. I might still, but this one, I think, looking at the overall makeup of the anthology now,
It fits really well.
it all fits together really well. I know that I've seen a couple advanced readers mention like thematically how things work.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, because I don't like, you have 13 people and such a like broad genre like space horror, and it's like, well, it's interesting how we all had our different takes on it, but there was still kind of this cohesive binding to it.
Yeah, there was like some common themes, and then we have two more space fantasy horror stories, so those went nicely together with the rest of them.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of stories about AI, whether good or bad. Some stories.
They say horror reflects the anxieties of the culture.
Yes.
And boy, does it.
Oh boy.
But speaking of space horror, which came first, like the genre of anthology you wanted, or the idea to do an anthology and then you narrowed it down from there? How did that work out?
So they came one after the other. It was the idea to do an anthology, and then I'm like, well, I'm just going to do space horror because that's my favorite genre. It's like there's so much inspiration and there's so many things that you can do with space horror.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at books that are already out, movies, video games, like it's all very varied.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do in there. By the time that we got into it, I had a moment where I was working on my story where I was like, why haven't I done this before? Like, this is just, this just makes so much sense, and it's so much fun, and I'm exploring so many, like, inspirations.
Well, that was another thing.
Yeah.
For me is, like, I really wanted to bring more people into space horror as a genre because it's kind of on the rise right now. I have a space horror novel coming out, and I just kind of wanted to spread the joy.
Yeah. I would say that you definitely succeeded as far as I'm concerned. Like, you opened my eyes to the joys of space horror. I don't know if I'll ever write it again, because historically I found sci-fi harder to write than fantasy, but it was a really fun exploration, and I was like, wow. It also made me, speaking of, it made me want to like experience more of the genre as like a, I don't want to say consumer, I hate that language, but like
As an experience.
Yeah, because I remember while we were in the process of putting this together, Alien Romulus came out.
No, actually, Romulus came out a couple months before I started doing this.
Oh.
But it was definitely like...
Time is fake to me, so, but I
Time
get
is
it.
fake to me, too. It was like a couple months before, but, it was still on everybody's mind.
Yeah, I watched the original Alien for the first time like a couple of years ago. It was just not something that was on my radar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
Yeah, I watched it for, I love name dropping. I don't get to do it very often. I watched it for my horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies, Casual Obsession. That's me and my spouse and a couple of friends. And we made that podcast as a way for us to like get more into different horror media that we had blind spots on. And that was one of them. Was I had just never, I think I watched Event Horizon before I watched the original Alien. Isn't that nuts?
Okay, so I actually I saw Event Horizon before I watched the original Alien.
Okay.
And it's a funny story because, like, I grew up with aliens, but my mom was too scared of Alien
That's so real.
to have me watch it. So I definitely saw Event Horizon before I watched the original Alien.
That makes sense. My first experience with horror in space, or just sci-fi, like more scary sci-fi, I find a lot of sci-fi is a little scarier than people give it credit for if you really like tune into the things that it's exploring.
It is.
I read Ender's Game, and then I read Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, the short story compilation. And I, Robot was a huge inspiration for my story in this anthology.
Yes.
As well as I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream and Star Trek. And I think that like the thing about space horror and AI, like we were talking about with how many of these stories are exploring AI, is like it's this wonderful kind of crossroads between unreality and reality, because with sci-fi, it feels more grounded than fantasy. And it feels like you have this like starting out point, like this common ground and this lowest common denominator that everyone can kind of agree on, so that when you get into the fantastical stuff, it's a lot easier to suspend disbelief, because everyone's like, and as we all know, artificial intelligence, and everyone can be, yes, artificial intelligence.
Yes. Derogatory.
Exactly. But with you, what were some like of the space horror inspirations, either for your story or just for like why you wanted to do a space horror anthology in the first place?
So Alien is my biggest inspiration for everything I write. It's my favorite movie of all time. I actually just read the novelization of it by Alan Dean Foster, and it was good. Different, but good.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, you should. So that's a huge inspiration. Romulus was a big inspiration for my story in the anthology, as well as Alien Isolation.
That makes sense.
Isolation is the biggest story that you can see the impact of.
Definitely.
Event Horizon was another one, which it was an inspiration for several people in the anthology.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
The first Expanse book, Leviathan Wakes, is another huge inspiration for me, is kind of what inspired me to mesh horror and sci-fi together, because you get to that like midpoint of the book and then everything goes pear-shaped.
Yeah.
One reviewer actually mentioned that they saw Alien and The Expanse in my story, which was very gratifying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something really validating about knowing, because it means that you pulled it off, right?
Yeah, it does mean that you pulled it off. Like, you brought in your inspirations, but you did something new.
Yeah, that's always really hard to do, especially with something like sci-fi, where I think that sometimes it feels like with the way that technology has progressed and the way that the genre was founded in like the 60s and the 70s, it's really, no offense, Mary Shelley, we're talking about space right now. Like, it's kind of hard to feel like you can do anything new with it, because so much of it got done so solidly back then. So it's always nice to hear.
Well, like, even back to the 20s with, like, there were sci-fi stories then.
Oh yeah, like War of the Worlds and stuff.
Yeah, you got War of the Worlds, and then, like, not long after that, you got Edgar Rice Burroughs with his, like, fantasy sci-fi stories outside of space. And, I mean, even H.G. Wells, like, his stories are sci-fi. They're just...
Or Jules Verne, or even C.S. Lewis has the space trilogy that he did that I cannot get into.
I haven't tried. I'm actually really picky about my space horror.
I don't blame you. And that one's more of a sci-fi fantasy, like space opera kind of a deal from my understanding. I should be pickier about my sci-fi. I admire that about you. You know what you like and you go for it.
Yeah. And, like, if I don't like a book or I don't like a show or movie, I will just stop watching it.
That's smart.
Because it's not worth my time.
That's smart. I wish that was me. I'll watch something bad.
I walked out of a movie 2 weeks ago, so...
Yes. And your action of walking out of that movie convinced me not to go see it, because I know
Yes.
I wouldn't have. I would have just gone and sat through that thing.
Not worth it.
I was going to ask you, in regards to Alien Isolation, have you played Dead Space?
Yes. Well, okay, technically I have not played it myself, but I watched my spouse play through it.
Ah, that works.
The new remaster that looks absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. How similar is that to Alien Isolation, just out of curiosity?
It's kind of got some of the same vibes, but of course the monsters are different. Isolation is a very slow survival, hide, scavenge. You have to complete quests to make it so that you can contact a ship or get off of the station. So it's a very tense and slow game. My spouse tried playing it, and he just couldn't with the tension and how slow it was, because he just likes shooting things.
Real and true.
But I was like, I am going to play this game, and I'm going to play it all the way through, and I love it. And I'm so excited for Alien Isolation 2.
I didn't know that we were getting another one. That's fun. Yeah. I can see that tension built up. Obviously, I can see it in your story. I think that that's another thing looking at a lot of these stories that has been done really well in Astrophobia is I feel like the tension building is done so differently from author to author, but everyone does a really good job of it. So overall, I'm really proud of what we as a group and what you specifically and helping bring it all together have done with this project.
Yeah, we've done like a really good job, like going back to the variety of the space horrors, the different voices, the including fantasy in there, a variety of endings.
Yes, I like that as well. The difference in like kind of optimism and pessimism of some of us. I really like that not all of us are primarily science fiction authors. I think that brings a variety of approaches to the genre, which is really fun.
I think only 3 of us are primarily sci-fi writers. One person like splits evenly between sci-fi and fantasy. One person is a fanfic writer.
Tangent. People really knock fanfic in a lot of circles.
Oh, I love fanfic.
Like, honestly, writing fanfic is its own beast, and I have massive respect for people who stick with that, and there's, to me, no skill gap. It's just a different set of skills. But the people who take it upon themselves to adjust to being original fiction writers, I hugely respect that, and I think that that's really cool, and I'm thrilled by that we have someone who comes from that background.
That was another thing I really liked about Astrophobia is that we have people from all over the place.
Yeah.
And people who are not all native English speakers. We have 4 people from Europe, 1 from Argentina. I think the rest of us are from various parts of the United States.
That is super cool. That's something I love about indie writing and indie publishing is like the connections that we're able to make with each other across borders. Getting to work with people that I feel like I would not have met if it weren't for stuff like this.
Otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get that because I have friends all over the world now because of indie writing and publishing and, just collaborating with artists.
Yeah.
It's like the cover artist for Astro is a French woman living in London.
Shout out. That art is incredible.
The art is amazing. I am so pleased with it.
What's our @ on Instagram, as it were?
It should be at Miriam Tilson.
I love it when people have their names as their usernames. It makes everything so much more.
Yep, Miriam Tilson, 2 L's in Tilson.
Yeah, follow Miriam for some amazing art.
Oh yeah, definitely follow Miriam.
I'm really glad that we got to work with that.
Oh, also, this was Miriam's first commission.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, you guys... You listeners, you're never going to know. You're never going to know, and I'm sorry for you. But the thumbnails that we got as the group.
The thumbnails.
The different ideas we landed. I love the one that we landed on. But like just
too.
the breadth of different concepts that we were sent were so cool. The process of working with that cover artist was incredible. And that's so, considering that, like, it's really crazy that this was Miriam's first commission. That's nuts.
Yeah. Miriam and I are close friends, and I was last year sometime, she said she wanted to branch out into covers, and I kept that in mind, and when this was becoming a reality, I approached her as like, Miriam, I'd love for you to do the cover of this. And
I am so glad, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad too.
I think that was a real strength, is like, I feel like once you locked in on the vision for this, we were all able to really work off what you clearly had in mind. There was never a point where it was like, I felt like you didn't know what you were doing as far as like the theming and the like image you wanted us. There's a reason that all of us are marketing with synth music. No one ever said that we were supposed to be marketing with synth music, but the vibes on this one are so strong. We're like, this is a synth book. That's what it is.
It is. It really is. It's synth and horror. And so, we have like Perturbator in a lot of our...
I love Perturbator. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, we got a bunch of good stuff, and I'm very excited for people to get their hands on this one, which will I think by the time that we're out, the book will have been out for a second, because as we're recording this, it comes out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So, if people do want to buy it after listening to this episode, where can they get their hands on it, Doom? Because I actually, apart from the card, I don't know.
So the card is the best place to use because it has the universal buy link. But it's Barnes & Noble, it's on Kobo, it's hopefully going to be on Amazon tomorrow, but I'm still waiting to hear back on that. But astroantho.card.co has all of the links. It has all of the contributors. It has information about the cover artist, the stories. I put a lot of work into that card.
It's gorgeous. And you listeners, I do have that linked in my personal Instagram bio at Nina Wolverina. If you want to just go that way, the short direction instead of typing it out, that's one place you can find it. I'm sure that it will be all over the place on socials for a hot minute after it comes out, but the card is the best place.
Absolutely. And it's in my card as well under books, Vesper Doom at card.co.
Heck yeah. Speaking of you,
oh no,
you mentioned your big ol' novel that's coming out.
My big boy.
Your big boy.
Oh, so I'm working on a space horror romance. Second chance romance, and it's gay, and it has been my passion project for the last 2.5 years. I put out my first book and immediately dove into this new book, Metropolis Down, and I have written and rewritten it several times.
So it needs that tender loving care, and it's going to be fantastic when it comes out, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood, etc.
Yeah, all of that, and then some.
You have a projected release date for that?
So the release date is October 7th of this year.
Nice.
And that is sticking. I am not moving from that date. It doesn't matter if I have to write for 24 hours straight to get it to my editor on time. The book will come out that day.
I believe in you.
Oh, another thing about the anthology is that we all have cover art.
We do. Oh my gosh, I forgot.
We forgot about the cover art.
We forgot to mention the cover art. That is another thing that you guys can, see in the final version is we all have, for our stories, a custom piece of cover art per story.
Yes. I made about half of them for people who either are not artists or didn't have or want to spend the money on art for the covers. And then there's several people who did their own cover art, like you.
I did, and I learned how to draw chrome.
Yes, I remember that, and you were just like freaking out over drawing the chrome.
It was an experience. I learned how to do it. I got satisfied with my ability to do it, and I haven't done it since. So
you should do it again.
I don't want to. I probably will at some point.
And then, so I really wanted there to be cover art because you don't really see that in anthologies. And because there's only 13 stories in this one, it seemed like a good thing to do.
It's a manageable goal, yeah. And it turned out really cool. So if you guys want to see that, you know where to find it. And in the meantime, is there anything else you wanted to say, Doom?
I guess I can tease another project I'm working on.
Please, I would love to hear about it.
So there's going to be a prequel story to Metropolis Down, which is where my two idiot space boys meet and fall in love.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's really cute, which is funny because the tone is so different from the romance to the actual big space horror novel.
That is always really fun.
Yeah.
I will look forward to reading that.
I already have the cover art started for that. I'm really excited for it.
Heck yeah.
And then early next year, I will be rewriting and republishing my original novella that I started on this journey with 4 years ago.
Well, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
If people want updates about that and to, get the lowdown on that cover art and everything, where should they follow you?
They should follow me at Vesper Doom on Instagram and at vesperdoom.com on Blue Sky.
Heck yeah. And you can find me, Nina, at Nina Wolverina on Instagram and Blue Sky. And I will obviously be very excitedly talking about Astrophobia there for a minute. And as far as this podcast that you are listening to goes, you can follow us on Right Here, Right Queer. That's RIGHTHEREWRITE, Queer Podcast on Insta. It's not at all confusing when you say it out loud.
I should definitely follow you on Insta.
You should. We are great. And that's where you can find us. And until next episode, thank you guys so much again for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.